who works in the kitchen. He asks his father to make it seem as if the Marquis chose Sparrow by chance, not at his own request. His father grew worried and asked him if something had happened, to which Urian replied that he would explain it to him later. The Marquis agrees to his request without asking further questions, showing his growing trust in Urian, which is confirmed by the status window showing the Marquis's affinity level has reached 74, trust. Later, Urian gathers Aaron and Cried and announces that they have become members of his personal knightly order, and asks them to train hard as usual. He then introduces them to his new personal servant, Sparrow. Aaron still feels suspicious of Sparrow. This was because she had previously asked Urian if she could ask him a question. Aaron asks Urian why he specifically chose Sparrow to replace her, and Urian calmly reveals the truth to her, explaining that Sparrow is a spy. Aaron was shocked by his response as she did not expect it. Urian continued that Sparrow was sent by the Knight Commander Karox and Lady Kana to assassinate him. Aaron is shocked and wonders why he is keeping him so close, to which Urian replies with a smile that now he only listens to his own orders. After that, Cried asks to ask a question. Urian doesn't object to questions. Cried points out that although the order consists of only 2 members, there should at least be a vice captain. He explains that this position, according to tradition, should go to the most skilled person, but he sees Aaron as looking young and weak, and not strong at all. Urian agrees with Cried's logic, which prompts Cried to request a challenge for the position. After Aaron defeats Cried in a duel, Aaron advises him that his attack patterns are too simple and can be easily read. Cried admits his defeat. Urian announces that the captain of the knightly order has now been decided, and it is Aaron, and everyone applauds her. Afterwards, Sparrow leaves to prepare dinner, and Urian decides to test a new technique. Urian watches Sparrow as he walks away and senses his vital energy, Ki. He decides to use secret sound transmission, a technique from wuxia novels that allows transmitting sound directly to the opponent's hearing using internal energy instead of sound. Urian calls out to Sparrow using this technique, and Sparrow panics when he hears the voice echoing in his head. Urian told him that he was communicating with her via telepathy. He believes it's a form of black magic. Urian takes advantage of his fear and goes along with this belief, making Sparrow believe his master is a black magician who controls poisons. Urian was surprised by Sparrow's analysis, and let him think as he wished without correction. Urian asks him if the poison he requested is ready, and Sparrow tells him that he barely managed to prepare Snake's Mind, a poison extracted from 100 venomous snakes. Urian orders him to add it generously to the charon soup he will be eating. Sparrow felt nervous and rushed to fulfill his request. That night, Urian meditates, and realizes his internal energy is not progressing as fast as he had hoped after reaching the 3rd star, and with the realization that a global crisis is imminent, he decides it's time to leave the Marquis to seek opportunities to develop his power. Urian tells his father that he plans to go out for a while. The Marquis asks if he intends to go to the Marquis's village, and Urian agrees. Urian asks about the duration he will be away. Hiding his intention to travel far away, he tells him he plans to be away for a week. The Marquis agrees to his request, considering he deserves a break after his hard training, then asks him how to handle the guards. Urian was waiting for this question and replies that he doesn't need a special guard, which surprises the Marquis. The Marquis strongly rejects the idea of Urian traveling without a guard, reminding him that he is the heir of the Rox family. Urian explains that he won't need an escort because he is only going to the neighboring village. The Marquis explains that the world is a terrifying place, warning him of the danger of being poisoned. Urian thinks that poison doesn't affect him, but he realizes that convincing his father will be difficult, so he reluctantly agrees to take a guard. Urian tells him that he will leave in 2 days, and the Marquis agrees to prepare the guards for him. In his room, Urian decides to sneak out the next day, instead of waiting for the guard. He summons Sparrow and tells him he is going on a trip and needs money. Urian reminds him of the money Karox gave him to feed the snakes. Urian asks him if he will refuse his request. Sparrow agrees to lend him the money immediately. Urian also asks him about that thing, pointing out that he saw the partial space bag that Sparrow owns when he took out the poisonous herbs. It is a magical bag that can store a large amount of luggage. Sparrow agrees to lend him the bag as well. After Urian gets what he wants, he gives Sparrow a fake antidote sufficient for a month, which is actually just dried leaves. Urian tells Sparrow that he appreciates his efforts so far, and that he will rely on him from this moment on. He promises him that he will give him a full cure soon. At dawn the next day, Urian leaves a note and sneaks out of the palace. As he walks through the empty garden, he did not encounter anyone in the garden as expected. Then an old gardener greets him. Urian returned his greeting. Urian feels a strong aura emanating from the gardener, but he decides to ignore it for now. Urian leaves the Marquisate's territory for the first time in his life and heads towards the magic tower in the neighboring village. Upon arrival, he tells the receptionist that he wishes to use teleportation, warp. The employee asked him if he had used it before, and he answered no. When the magic tower employee asks him for his destination, Urian tells him he wants to go to Oz Castle, The employee notes that the destination is far and informs him that the cost is 50 gold pieces. Urian pays the amount, which he considers exorbitant, and registers a fake name, Polion, the name he used in online games. The employee leads him to the teleportation room and tells him he will arrive when he hears a knocking sound. Urian enters the room, and after a few moments, he hears a voice telling him he has arrived. He exits to find himself in another magic tower, where an employee at Os Castle welcomes him. Urian is surprised that he felt nothing during the teleportation, and the employee proudly tells him that this comfortable sensation during teleportation is the pride of their magic tower. Urian was surprised that it was this easy. Urian wondered to himself why he felt a twisting sensation instead of the usual comfort. Then the employee addressed him, welcoming him and wishing him a pleasant journey. Urian goes out to explore Os Castle, and notices that it is located in the western region, unlike the Marquisate, and that the architecture is different, and the city is crowded with people. He begins to search for the unicorn workshop in the blacksmith's alley. After a long search until dark, he is unable to find it. He decides to check the last remaining alley. There, he finds a blacksmith working. The blacksmith asked G if he was a customer. Urian told him he wanted to inquire about one of the blacksmiths here, and asks him if he knows a workshop called the Unicorn Workshop. The blacksmith replies that as far as he knows, there is no workshop with that name nearby. Urian is disappointed, but the blacksmith then adds that this is the name he was planning to use for his shop soon. Urian realizes he has found the right person. He uses Creator's Eye to examine the blacksmith, and a status window appears, revealing his name is Geranox, and he possesses the traits War Gear Crafting and Fire Affinity, in addition to other skills. Urian asks Geranox if he can take a look at the weapons he sells, and the blacksmith agrees and welcomes him inside. When Urian enters the blacksmith's workshop, he asks Geranox about his business. Geranox admits that business is not good. His shop is located in a secluded corner and his skills are not the best. He adds that customers who come take a look and then leave, and he doesn't know how much longer he can go on like this. Urian takes a look at the displayed weapons and realizes they are not ordinary at all. Using Creator's Eye, he sees information about the swords. The 3 Wind Spirit swords are blessed by the Wind Spirit Sylph and increase attack speed, movement, and agility. There is also the Great Flame Spirit Sword, blessed by the Fire Spirit Salamander, which increases strength, stamina, and durability. Urian asks Geranox if he made them. Geranox confirms it, but describes them as failures. He explains that the swords became strangely heavy after being made, to the point that even strong people can barely lift them, which is why no one buys them. Urian thinks to himself that this is not a failure, but that the swords have not yet found a worthy person who can bring out their true power. Urian decides to buy the swords, believing they would be perfect for Aaron and Cried. But he realizes these are not the treasures he is truly looking for. He asks Geranox if he has any severely rusted weapons. Geranox is surprised by the request, but shows him a pile of scrap he was planning to sell as firewood. Urian examines the weapons, thinking that things are going exactly as he planned in his story, and finds what he's looking for. Geranox tells him he did not make this weapon, but found it in the storage and was planning to get rid of it. Urian decides to take this weapon as well. Geranox offers him everything for just 2 gold pieces. Urian thinks this is a bargain, as the real value of this weapon exceeds 200 gold pieces. Urian changes his plan. Urian realizes that what truly interests him is not the weapons, but the blacksmith himself. He offers Geranox, who is suffering from financial difficulties, to close his workshop and work for him as his private blacksmith. Geranox is surprised by the sudden offer. The blacksmith told Urian that he had not been ignoring the possibility of closing, but he did not expect this to happen. To convince him, Urian introduces himself formally. I am Urian Rox of the Rox family, the Invincible Spear, protector of the South. Geranox is shocked when he realizes he is speaking to a member of the Marquis Rox's family. After Urian reveals his identity, Geranox kneels before him, asking for forgiveness because he never imagined someone of his stature would visit his humble workshop. Urian is surprised by his reaction and asks him to rise, but Geranox insists on staying that way and asking what he wants, so Urian reluctantly agrees. Geranox asks why someone like Urian would want to hire a poor blacksmith like him, and Urian replies that it is because of his special talent. Geranox denies having any talent, saying he gets scolded by his master every day. Urian realized his training wasn't just strict, it was the epitome of strictness. Urian explains that he visited many blacksmith workshops today, but Geranox's weapons stood out from the rest, because of the clear sincerity in their making. He praises the precision of his work, especially in wrapping the sword hilts, which is important to prevent the weapon from slipping. Urian tells him that he believes he will awaken a special talent one day. Urian wondered to himself, I just made that up on the spot. Will it work? Geranox is moved by his words and agrees to follow him, but he notes that Urian is completely different from the rumors he heard about him being a delinquent. Urian decides to show him something interesting. He takes the rusty dagger he bought and utters the word, "Awaken." The dagger transforms into a glowing legendary weapon called Agnes, the vestige of many forms. Geranox is surprised, while Urian thinks that this weapon, the legendary Ego Sword, was supposed to be obtained by the original protagonist of the novel. A system window appears asking Urian if he wants to proceed and make a spiritual contract with Agnes, and he agrees. After a flash of light, Urian hears an angry voice in his head wondering who he is and how he dares to make a contract with it. Urian is surprised that the voice is not that of a cute girl as he wrote in his story, but a rude one. Agnes scolds him, telling him he doesn't have an ounce of talent, and Urian realizes she is angry because she cannot sense any mana from him. Agnes wondered why someone like him would ever be able to make a contract with her. Agnes asks him how he knew of her location and the incantation needed to release her. Urian replies that he heard it from the Great Prophet, an additional setting he had put in the story to ensure consistency. Agnes continues to insult him, wondering why the Great Prophet would waste his time on a useless person like him. Urian asks if she knows what he can do, then answers himself with confidence that of course he knows, as he is the one who wrote her settings. He explains that Agnes can split into 2 separate weapons, and each can transform into any weapon its wielder imagines. In the original story, the protagonist used it as a sword and a shield. Urian tells Agnes that he knows if her sub-body is lost, it always returns to her main body. Agnes insists that his knowledge is worthless, because she can only be used with mana, which Urian lacks. She told him to give up, but Urian tells her she is annoying, and uses his internal energy to force her to transform into a ring, causing her intense pain. Agnes screams in surprise, feeling the warmth of Urian's energy as if she were melting. Urian realizes that martial arts can substitute for mana to activate Agnes's abilities. After that, Urian finalizes his arrangements with Geranox, telling him he will need 2 days to finish his affairs. They agree to meet in front of the As Castle Central Park in 2 days at noon. As Urian wanders through the park, he is surprised to see Aaliyah there. Elena was surprised and asked him what he was doing here. Urian felt that the situation in front of Central Park seemed familiar. He remembers that this is where the original protagonist was supposed to meet Elia for the first time, and he realizes that the main story's path has changed somehow. Elia angrily asks him what he is doing here. Urian replies that he came to look for a blacksmith. Elia is surprised by this, pointing out that the Rox family has plenty of blacksmiths. Urian explains that he wanted to hire his own person. Elia tells him that if he had told her beforehand, she could have helped him, but he reassures her that he has already found a good person. At that moment, Geranox arrives on time. The blacksmith apologized to Urian for being late and making him wait. Urian introduces Elia to Geranox, identifying her as his fiancée. Another knight interrupts them, asking his squad leader, Elia, who she is talking to, noting that they will be leaving soon. Elia introduces Urian to the knight, named Mask, as her fiancé. Urian rocks. Rox is shocked when he sees Urian for the first time. Mask is surprised to see a young master from the Rox family in a place like this, and introduces himself as Mask Malone, leader of the 5th squad of the Steelhammer Knights, who serve the Marquis family. Urian thinks to himself that he knows Mask well, as he is a minor character with a bad attitude that he wrote in his novel. Urian remembers how the events were supposed to unfold in the original story. A masked person intercepts Mask and his knights. Then the protagonist steps forward and challenges Mask. As Urian anxiously recalls the events of the original story, where a fight was supposed to break out between the protagonist and Mask, and Aaliyah would arrive just in time to stop them, from which their relationship would begin. More importantly, after this incident, the protagonist accompanies Elia into battle and saves her from certain death. Urian realizes he can't simply find the protagonist and bring him back into the scene, and he decides he cannot let Elia die. Urian asks Elia for her destination. She tells him that reports of goblin raids near Azio Castle have increased, and her knightly order has received an order to scout the area and subdue them. Urian asks Elia for a favor, which is to allow him to join them. Elia is surprised by his request and asks him why. Urian replies that as someone who is also training, he wants to experience real combat and see her skills up close. Elia warns him that it could be dangerous, but he reassures her that he is good at running away. Elia agrees to his request and orders Sir Mask to provide a horse for him and Geranox. Mask objects, saying they are not on a picnic and cannot be careless, especially since Urian and Geranox have no trace of mana. Mask adds that they have neither the duty nor the ability to protect them. Elia sternly orders him to follow orders without another word. Mask complies, and Elia whispers to him that he should have become the squad leader if he felt it was unfair. Before they set off, Elia asks Urian to stay close to her because he is in danger, and Urian orders Geranox to hold on to him tightly. They ride off together. Upon their arrival, Elia divides the knights into teams of 5 to search for the goblin settlement. ordering them not to attack and to fire a signal flare upon finding it. Then Elia ordered the guards to disperse. As darkness approaches and tracking becomes difficult, Elia decides to turn back. Suddenly, a signal flare lights up the sky, followed by another flare from a different direction, then a third, and a fourth. The knights wonder how many flares went off, with Urien answering 4, while another insists it was 5. Elia decides to head towards the nearest flare to the west, but one of the knights tries to stop them. When Elia's squad arrives at the location of one of the flares, they find that all the soldiers are dead. The knights are shocked to see their comrades' armor has melted, wondering what kind of attack they faced. Elia decides to head immediately to the next southern flare location. There too, they find all the soldiers killed in the same horrific manner. As one of the knights urges his captain to move quickly to the next area, Urien intervenes, shouting that they cannot move now. Elia is surprised by Urien's words. Urien explains that the goblins are spread out and hunting their soldiers one by one, and at this rate, there is no chance of victory. He suggests that they should halt the operation and fire a signal flare to gather all remaining forces at their location. A knight shouts at him angrily, asking who he thinks he is to speak in such a manner, and blames him for this mess. Urien remembers this scene happened in his original story, where the protagonist was reprimanded in the same way, which angered the readers. As the knight continues to scold him and orders him to be silent, Urien uses his internal energy to pressure him, causing the knight to fall from his horse. Elia doesn't understand how Urien was able to make the knight fall without getting near him. Urien orders him to know his place and remain silent, and the terrified knight agrees. Urien just asks him to watch as he solves this problem. Then Urien turns to Elia, reminding her that in the original story, she didn't listen to the protagonist and stubbornly stuck to her opinion. He asks her to judge wisely this time. Elia is convinced by his point of view, admitting she wasn't seeing the situation clearly, and orders a blue flare to be fired immediately to gather the forces. The knights fire the flares and wait for the remaining scattered knights to gather. Jarenox admires Urien's ability to make everyone move as he wishes, and asks him if he is sure that a larger number of soldiers will gather again. But Urien tells him that most of the soldiers probably won't be able to reach them. Jarenox gets nervous when he understands what he means by his words. Urien explains that an enemy named Karuda has already finished them off. The real fight begins. One of the soldiers runs to Elia in a state of terror. The terrified soldier screams that they must flee immediately, and Elia asks him in astonishment what is happening. At that moment, a massive army of goblins appears, and another knight shouts that their numbers are overwhelming. Elia stands speechless as she sees this crushing number of enemies. She feels guilty and apologizes to Urien, believing he will die because of her. But Urien reassures her that it's okay, and steps forward confidently, assuring her that she will not die here. Elia asks him with bewilderment what he is doing. Urien faces the goblin horde and calls out to Agnes, announcing that he will test what they have practiced over the past 2 days. He orders her to generate black iron bullets by proxy. Urien thinks that he hasn't had a chance to try this technique, which he obtained after reaching the 3rd level of the Body of 10,000 Poisons. Before, a system window appears before him, explaining that the black iron blast technique fires hidden weapons filled with internal power by detonating the black iron bullets. Urien shouts, ordering the goblins to receive his attack, and throws the bullet, which hits its target. After the bullet lodged in one of the goblins' weapons, amidst their confusion, the first explosion occurred, which wiped out a large number of them amidst their screams, leading Urien to order the bullets to return. He thinks to himself happily how Agnes's proxy summoning ability is a perfect match for his power. As soon as the bullets return, he throws them again, creating consecutive explosions that wipe out more goblins. A shocked Elia asks him what he just threw, and Urien calmly replies that the technique is called Black Iron Blast, and that he will explain the details later. Elia notices that the number of goblins has significantly decreased, so she turns to her astonished knights and shouts at them, asking what they are doing, assuring them that victory is now possible. She urges them to seize the opportunity and eliminate the remaining goblins. Under her leadership, the knights charge to engage the remaining enemies. During the battle, and the clash between the knights and goblins, one of the goblins tries to flee the battle but is surprised by something standing in its way, and it screams in pain as a red hand appears grabbing its head. Elia is stunned as she wonders what is happening. Suddenly, a massive red-skinned warrior of incredible size appears from among the goblins, holding the corpse of a goblin in his hand. Urien watches this newcomer, realizing that the legendary goblin warrior Karuda has finally appeared. Urien looks at him with determination, thinking that if they can't eliminate him today, they will all die.